one last question. I know you've talked about the failures of the past government to meet the ambitious climate goals. I'm wondering if there's one or two examples you could point to where the NDP's government may have exacerbated the situation with climate.
Yeah, actually, well, Dave, why don't you answer that? You want to do peat bog mining? There's
peat
one.
bog mining. In this last summer, they ended a 4-year moratorium on peat bog mining, which represents the equivalent of 3% of Manitoba's CO2 emissions. They just upped the CO2 emissions by reintroducing peat bog mining after a 4-year moratorium. That made no sense whatsoever. They shifted it from, they believe they shifted it from mines to conservation. They shifted departments, and there's no reason to re-implement peat bog mining. It's just a small example, but
I can give other examples. So we've put in tax credits for horizontal drilling largely in southwestern Manitoba, which involves us fracking for oil, and essentially we're seeing large methane, sour gas releases in Manitoba. That's actually, cumulatively, it's about 900,000 kilotons, I believe. It's one of the largest emitters in Manitoba. Other things that the government has done, I think, in terms of increasing emissions, their ethanol strategy is all wrong. They claim that, the numbers always change, but anywhere from 330,000 to 400,000 in emissions reduction. However, if you look right at the Environment Canada reports, you'll see the Husky plant itself produces 200,000. So the numbers they're giving us aren't accurate numbers, and many people would argue that ethanol production actually produces more emissions than it reduces. So there's an example of a strategy that they constantly point to. This is what we're doing on climate change. This is what we're doing on climate change, but it's not even a very effective strategy. The other thing they haven't really done is they haven't really shown the courage and fortitude to take on transportation. I mean, that's the big one in Manitoba, and it's not easy. I know we all like our cars, and but what I think people need to realize is we convert to electric cars. They're just as convenient. In fact, I got to meet the secretary of the Manitoba Electric Vehicle Association. He spends $7 a month on electricity to power his car. $7 a month. How many of us wouldn't mind to drive a car for $7 a month? Getting electric buses, they're more quiet, they're more silent. A lot of people prefer to be on them. So these options aren't going to make the world, worse off. They're going to make us much better off. And I think even more importantly, I think we missed the boat 10 years ago. And it's too bad that we didn't move 10 years ago, but if we move now, we can start capturing these opportunities. And if we wait, we're going to be left behind. We may have already waited too long with this NDP government, and that's why we need Greens in the legislature.
in particular, another issue that's come up is the Energy East pipeline, and the NDP, the Liberals and the Conservatives are all on the same page with Energy East. There may have been individuals who say things differently, but the parties are on board with Energy East. The Green Party of Manitoba is the only party with a policy that opposes Energy East. And that is the equivalent, if you take what's proposed to come through that pipeline, it's much more than the entire emissions of Manitoba every year coming through that pipeline. So facilitating the pipeline like the Selinger government is proposing to do is going to be a mistake, and it needs to be stopped. And that's another issue that the NDP need to come on board with. And not only, of course, we want to form government in the Green Party, but even individuals getting elected to the legislature can change the nature and the tone of the debate on these issues. Nobody mentions fracking in the Manitoba government or in any of the NDP government. They've allowed that to expand over the last several years, and those regulations that they're working under were passed in 1993 and 94. They have no updated regulations with fracking. It's undergone a massive expansion, and like James said, it releases greenhouse gases. It's the wrong way to go for our water supply and our water safety. And again, the Greens' job is to, of course, get elected and of course form government, but we raise the level of debate on these issues, and we force the other parties to come out and be greener in themselves. So we have a greening influence in the political spectrum.
I think Dave's being too modest. I think Dave's ran hard against a candidate right now who's now putting out literature saying that he's going to actively oppose the Energy East, and we've seen another candidate do that as well. I don't think if we didn't have the Green Party nipping at their heels and forcing to hold this government to account, we wouldn't be seeing these reversals. And we really have to ask ourselves, can we trust them? I mean, in 2008, when Garry-Riverview passed the Climate Change Emissions Reductions Act, he explicitly said, if our government doesn't meet these reductions, if we don't meet our Kyoto target of 6% below 1990 levels, the people of Manitoba should vote us out of office. Unfortunately, they didn't. How many times can we trust this government to repeatedly make promises that they fail to implement? And that's really, I think, the situation. I think without Greens in the legislature, and whether we're in the legislature or not, it doesn't matter. We're going to keep pushing on these issues. But I think by getting us in the legislature, Manitobans can be more assured that whoever forms the next government, that these issues are going to be front and center, and that someone's actually going to be raising them, and someone's actually going to take climate change seriously. As I said, $1 or $2 million a year to deal with climate change, that doesn't give it the priority that it deserves. 166 million and growing.
Yeah.
That shows a level of sincerity that no other party is putting forward.